I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real here, not with my partner, Mr. Nick Hodge, this week, who is taking a break for a day or two. We actually have a very special guest today. That's our in-house crypto expert, Mr. Chris Curl, here for the 297th episode of what is usually our weekly therapy session with Mr. Hodge. This week, we're going to dig into all things markets, all things crypto, some of the madness going on around the world, some of the stuff we expected to happen politically and economically. But first and foremost, Mr. Curl, I am excited to have you on. How are you today, sir?
Glad to be here, Gerardo. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. As I always tell Nick, the wife still loves me. She gets prettier every day. The kids are healthy. Family's doing well. So closing out the year in a very, very, very strong fashion all across the board, right? Let's get right into the overall markets. And then we're going to talk your specialty, which is crypto, of course. I've had several friends reach out, pointing out, estimates about how high Bitcoin will go, and Bitcoin broke 100,000, and now Bitcoin, hit 102,000. I keep telling them, look, guys, I stick to my knitting. I do what I do. What I do in my little corner of the world is natural resource stocks. However, someone that has killed it for several years, Mr. Chris Curl, is on today to speak to the masses on the crypto side. But let's get into the overall markets. Look, Mr. Trump was over at the exchange today, ringing the bell. Markets are at all-time highs. We have promises of a 15% corporate income tax, which would be, a pretty significant cut for us business and asset owners. Everything appears to be awesome, right? What thoughts on the overall markets, Chris, as you see them? I know you called for a Trump victory way back when. You called for a lot of things. We're going to get into that here in a little bit as well. But what are your thoughts on the overall markets? I usually kick this one over to Nick because he pays more attention to those markets than I usually do. I know you watch them because of how interrelated crypto, Bitcoin, and the stock markets tend to be, along with interest rates, right?
Well, that's right. I mean, Bitcoin's correlated to a lot of things: global liquidity flows, the S&P 500. All these things do affect the price of Bitcoin. But I called $100,000 Bitcoin 2 years ago. I called the Trump presidency. I've gotten a lot of things right, gotten a few things wrong, but I got the important things right, and that's what I'm focusing on, and that's what I'm taking forward. But as far as the overall markets right now, all year I've been predicting what we normally get in Q4, which is positive price movement for equities, and the Santa Claus rally kind of culminating at the end of the year around New Year's, Christmas. I see that playing out right now, and I've really prepared for that. If you are interested in kind of AI and stock picks, you can look at John Carl, and I have a tech publication called Digital Dispatch, and our portfolio there has been performing extremely well. I mean, we're putting up kind of crypto numbers and some of those tech stocks. So that's kind of how frothy the markets have been, particularly over the last year. And I personally see that continuing at the very least, into the end of year, Christmas, New Year's. And given a Trump win and a Trump inauguration, that could give the markets a little added boost early in 2025 as well. I think did Trump just open the New York Stock Exchange this morning?
Absolutely.
Jim Cramer I was worried about Jim Cramer having the touch of death on him, but we'll see.
Did you see the exchange? It was hilarious.
I didn't see the whole thing.
Oh, it was great. So for those of you not familiar, Jim Cramer is a very eccentric, gregarious personality in the world of finance, right? He's been successful, he's been unsuccessful, but he's got a history of just like calling market tops and picking stocks when they're at their very highest and then watching them drop, right? And so the inside joke amongst us that are aware is that if he touches a stock, it's probably time to short it, or at the very least avoid it. And if you own it, probably sell it. And so he goes up to the Trumpster and he says, are you encouraging people to buy stocks? You want to do this 15% corporate tax cut, to cut the tax rate down to 15%. Let me be clear on that. And the markets are excited for the incoming presidency. You're cutting red tape. You're putting America first. All the talking points. And he says, "Are you encouraging Americans to go out and buy stocks?" And the Trumpster says, "Well, Jim, I would never do that because things go up, but things also go down, and nobody knows about things going down better than you."
That's really good. I got to give him that.
And I don't
He
think he
really,
meant it that way, but for us in the know, we kind of took it that way, right? Um, no, look, I want to get back to Mr. Trump, incoming president. January is right around the corner. In a month or so, he'll be, sworn in. And forget political parties, affiliations, or how you feel about the election. The bottom line is, I always said both administrations are going to take care of the asset owners, right? Whether you own real estate, whether you own a business, companies, whatever that is, you're going to be taken care of by both administrations. There was never a risk, I don't think, of either administration completely, you know, going the other direction and not catering to the biggest donors, which are the corporations. But I have to admit, I mean, Mr. Trump's proposals for a 15% corporate income tax, along with, he tweeted this week that any company that invests $1 billion or more in America would see expedited permits, and an expedited review process. That is, again, however you feel about the election, that is extremely bullish for business in America. Now, are there things I disagree with? Absolutely. I think the tariffs are a hot mess. I don't think they're sustainable. I've said that before. I don't think that at a time where we had an inflation number come in, and the print was, "You're getting more inflation, people." And Donald Trump knows it. They asked him, they said, "Listen, can you guarantee that you'll be able to bring inflation down?" And he understands the mess that he's in economically and mathematically, right? He said it's kind of hard to bring things down when prices get to a certain level. So I think the team around him is actually doing him well by having him set an expectation that you really shouldn't count on much lower inflation because the cat's out the bag, right? We have $36 trillion of debt. Let me read you my fun fact of the day that I actually took time to write down for once in my life here. Uh, 62.5% of the personal income taxes you paid to the federal government last month were for interest on the debt. Let me say that again. 62.5% of the personal income taxes that you paid to the federal government were for interest on the debt, not for roads, not for schools, not for bridges, not for hospitals, not for our military, not for Social Security, just on the interest. Folks, that's not sustainable. Meanwhile, in Argentina, they had their first budget surplus in 123 years. And you know how the president achieved that? By coming in and pissing everybody off, firing half of the government, right? However you feel about government, however you feel about Trump, however you feel about Argentina, they haven't had a budget surplus in 123 years. This gentleman was able to come in, took an axe to everything. And I'm not saying that's how we should do it here, but I'm saying it can be done. He did it in 1 year. This was a country where capital was drying up. And look, the Argentine president was one of the first people to visit Donald Trump after his victory at the White House. I don't think it's a coincidence that DOGE, which Elon Musk and the future presidential candidate to be are leading. I don't think it's a coincidence that there's a hyper focus on cutting waste. And again, I want to be respectful to military people. I want to be respectful to people in government, but there is a lot of waste in that system, folks, and we absolutely have to go ahead and start cutting that down. Because I got my tax bill here. I will show it to you because it's disgusting. I don't want 62.5 of that going to interest. I have kids. I have kids that are going to have kids. I want a better future for them. So let's trim the fat and let's absolutely, spend where we have to spend, but we have to get on a sustainable path. Any thoughts on just where we're at fiscally here in this country, Chris?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, as you said, with the DOGE initiative, Elon Musk is smart enough to look at a chart of the debt and the revenue and kind of see the totally unsustainable debt spiral that the United States is in after 50 plus years of Keynesian monetary policy, kind of modern monetary theory, fiat government debt deficit spending. It really ramped up in 2008 in the
Sure.
banking crisis. And then, of course, when I personally started allocating heavily into Bitcoin in cryptocurrencies personally was during the COVID crisis when they shut down productivity across the board and just started flooding the economy with money everywhere, trillions and trillions of dollars.
Trillions and
Uh,
trillions.
and trillions. And I think the thing that's the most disturbing about that reality is, of course, that was an unprecedented crisis. I think the government responded in probably the worst possible way at the worst
Absolutely.
possible time, which is what
Absolutely.
one can pretty much expect from the government at this point. But they continued that same level of spending throughout the Biden administration to kind of keep this zombie economy, or at least some of the numbers, looking halfway decent, even though things were terrible. That's what I was talking about the last time I was on. Things are not fundamentally good. They're just keeping it propped up with trillions in deficit spending. And that's why Trump, I mean, that's a big reason why Trump won, because they're actually talking about, hey, let's get in here and see if we can figure out how to get some of this under control. Trump doesn't have any appetite for cutting spending, but a lot of
No.
people in his administration do. Like if Elon Musk gets in there with the DOGE commission, I'm pretty skeptical on what they can actually accomplish. But at the very least, I think they could raise some awareness about the bloat and the I'll just call it money laundering that's going on in the government. I mean, we don't know where all this money is going. I mean, it's the Pentagon's got all these trillions unaccounted for. Money's going overseas. We don't know where it's going. So yeah, that's going to be a big part of this administration. It's something that I'm hopeful for. The thing I'm most hopeful for, of course, is the fact that every time any Trump gets in front of a microphone, they can't stop talking about crypto. It's crypto this, it's crypto that. This is in such a direct opposition to the last 4 years under the Biden administration, where everything's been anti-crypto. Trump's going to get in there, and we're just going to get a lot of pro-crypto policy. We already have a pro-crypto SEC chairman replacing Gary Gensler. And you've got Eric Trump was just on TV last night talking about really the things I've been saying for the last 3 years every day about how we don't want to push the growth and innovation outside of the United States at a time like this. We want as much economic growth as we can possibly get. And we want to keep things in-house as much as possible. So that's why Trump has been talking about, hey, let's make Bitcoin mining like the big thing here in the United States. Let's mine all the Bitcoin. He's partnered up with Senator Cynthia Lummis on this Bitcoin Reserve Act, where they're going to buy up 5% of the total supply of Bitcoin over 5 years and hold it in a reserve. And if Bitcoin does what myself and other people believe it will in the next coming decades, that could actually be something that really helps us with our massive debt problem. And that's all I think probably going to happen in some capacity during this Trump administration. So that's all very bullish for crypto, and I think gives at least a little bit of hope for the future of this country and our economy, because I mean, at some point, our existing financial system is going to collapse. I mean, it's going to collapse in our lifetimes. So we're going to want some alternatives in place. I think that's where gold comes into play historically. And now Bitcoin is the new gold. And blockchain and crypto is set to revolutionize a lot of very antiquated industries and a lot of antiquated processes that are still in place in our economy.
And I think this is where what you and I do, Chris, and you brought it up beautifully with gold, right? That's where our worlds kind of collide, because you can't establish this Bitcoin reserve and you can't provide the amount of energy and infrastructure that's necessary to make something like that happen without insane energy inputs, right? And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's why we have this nuclear renaissance. So it's bullish for uranium. It's bullish for copper. It's bullish for gold, because the best way to get the gold bugs and that community, which I don't understand why it's always Bitcoin or gold. Uh, Both can coexist, and you folks, I'm telling you from the resource side, we're going to continue to do extremely well on the gold side, on the copper side, on the uranium side. But Chris is here to tell you we're also going to do extremely well on not just the Bitcoin side, but you think there's a mania coming in the altcoins that we haven't even gotten into, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you were saying, the gold and Bitcoin people are on the same team. They're on the sound money team. I don't understand why everybody fights each other all the time, but
Me neither.
it's the same team.
Yeah, I always tell
So,
everyone you can love Sydney Sweeney and Ana de Armas at the same time. I love both those
right.
beautiful ladies. Like they're amazing. It
They're on the
doesn't have to
beautiful
be
women team. There's no problem.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
Everybody's good.
either or, and pun intended. It doesn't have to be a tit for tat, right? Like you can
Right.
just you can love both. So
There's room for both.
absolutely. So look, that's my very long-winded way of saying gold near 2,700 with the dollar index near 107. Extremely bullish because they are going to have to spend. We're not just going to, even if we take belt to ass and cut 10% of the spending and remove all the waste, there's still going to need to be sizable investment, which is why I think the Trump administration is trying to court capital the way Argentina has by cutting corporate tax rates. He wants companies to come over. He wants companies not, to re-domicile in other jurisdictions. No, he wants them to come to the US, set up shop here, spend that $1 billion here, and we'll give you an expedited process. That's hugely bullish for mining and then the stuff that I do. So look, gold near 2,700, absolutely bullish. Silver above 30, 31. I think that's the new floor. Absolutely bullish. The dollar index being near 107, I think it's going to retreat after Trump comes into office and people start facing the reality of what can and can't be done. But the fact that commodities are where they're at, despite $107 index, is extremely bullish to me. Ditto for copper, right at the 415 level. China just introduced what I told you it would introduce months and months ago, more aggressive stimulus across the board. It's why the copper price is rallying. And again, all of that, folks, bodes well for making money in both what I do, the natural resource stocks, and what Chris does so well, the altcoins and the Bitcoin and all of the crypto stuff. Chris is our in-house go-to person, folks. Anybody that's interested in crypto that hasn't yet subscribed to his service is doing themselves a disservice. It's a phenomenal service. I've said it over and over. I'll keep saying it. I think it's the best crypto service in the industry. I'll put it up against anyone. I don't just say that to say it or because we're colleagues. I say it with my checkbook because Nick and I, as some of you know, took 50,000 of our own money about a year or so ago, I think, Chris, right? And said, hey, Chris, we're not crypto experts, but you are. We do what we do. Here's 50,000. You go ahead and put that in an account and go get busy and cook. And I think that's tripled here. And we haven't even got to the good part is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I do think that the next 40 weeks in particular are going to be the most bullish phase of this crypto bull market. Every time I come on here, I talk about Bitcoin being a cyclical asset, having a 4-year cycle. And that all revolves around the Bitcoin halving, which happens roughly every 4 years. And it cuts the mining rewards in half, makes Bitcoin more scarce, more deflationary. And when diminished supply meets the increased demand, that causes a bull market for Bitcoin. And that usually peaks out 80 weeks, historically 80 weeks after the halving. The halving was in April. We're about 40 weeks out now. And we've seen Bitcoin already break over $100,000, which was a huge psychological and technical resistance for Bitcoin. Now it's just hanging out above 100 grand, ready to do its next leg higher. And when it does, and when it tops out roughly where I think it will, that's when you're going to get the altcoin season, the mania. That's where the biggest gains are made in crypto, in that alt season. And that's why I think everyone should jump in now. If they want to get into crypto, the next 40 weeks, next few months are when you're going to want to do it. And if you follow my guidance, I'll be getting out of the markets, at the right time, and really guiding my readers to some pretty significant profits in the meantime.
Well, and listen, let me put my salesman hat on right now, right? You just introduced your next big idea, right? You're great at catching trends and themes early and getting ahead of these trends. It's why we gave you the 50,000, told you to cook with it. It's why you've done so well personally. It's why Chris Curl's Crypto Cycle to me is the best crypto publication in the business. But you actually just launched a presentation this week on a project that I know is near and dear to your heart that you think has the potential to deliver the kind of gains that you've already delivered in the past, but you think this might be one of the better ideas at this stage of the cycle where it's at. And I don't want you to give it away because I want people to sign up and get on your publication and reap the rewards that come with all of the information that you have on there. But can you give us an overview on what it is that and again, overview, right? Definitely forest, not the tree. On what it is that you've uncovered and why you think it's going to be so profitable.
Sure. Yeah. So this project was one that I've been following for a long time. And I actually had 10x returns on this same crypto project back in the last alt season in 2021. And they have gone through the process of rebranding, and they're launching a new project, and they're partnered with none other than Google to do so. And they have many use cases for this new project, but I think one of the most compelling real world use cases for it is kind of really disrupting the credit card industry. Because that is, as I was mentioning earlier, there are a lot of these outdated, ossified institutions, especially in finance, that are ripe for something to come along and really disrupt and overtake them. And
Kind of
so
like
I
our
do
entire
think,
monetary system, right? It's kind of interesting
well,
that you can
yeah,
take
and
that and
that's
apply
enough.
it to the whole thing.
I mean, I think that's going to be an inevitability when this house of cards comes tumbling down. But and that's where Bitcoin comes into play in a big way. But yeah, this particular project, really excited about. It has the ability to achieve finality in these cryptocurrency transactions in roughly 720 milliseconds. And that's
It's
much faster
insane.
than any of the nearest, even blockchain projects. It's super fast. And this is incredible when you compare it to what the credit card companies are currently operating under, which finality often takes 3 days, costs billions of dollars, is rife with fraud. It's an incredibly inefficient system that's kind of stuck in the 1970s.
It ties capital
So
up that you could otherwise reallocate right back into the economy, right?
it's so much more efficient, and it frees up so much capital if it's really utilized in a large way. Yeah, it's hard to quantify, but the credit card industry is a roughly 1.7 trillion dollar
Trillion.
industry. This crypto project is sitting at around $3 billion market cap. It's recently gone up about 100% just since I started writing this report, and I think it's still going to go up quite a bit higher. And yeah, you can. I think there'll be a link to the interview that I did with my colleague John Carl, where we talk about it, and you can sign up for Crypto Cycle and check out the report. It'll show you exactly how and where to buy it, how easy it is, and there's a lot of other useful information you can get in there as well. But it's definitely one that I'm excited enough to write a report about. I think, given where we are in the market cycle, given the size of this project, I think the downside risk is minimal at this point. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some gains from that project in the future here.
And folks, I can't encourage people to get off the sidelines anymore. I mean, everything isn't going to be awesome the way it is right now in every sector forever. And everything's not going to be awesome pretty soon, right? There's stuff that I'm looking at. Chris, one of my favorite movies is The Big Short. I mean, the cast is top notch, right? Steve Carell, it's Ryan Gosling, it's Brad Pitt, it's Margot Robbie's in a bathtub for 2 minutes. The whole thing. It's a phenomenal movie. It's based on a true story, and Christian Bale's in there, extremely well done. I rewatched it yesterday because some of the stuff that I'm seeing out there has that kind of feel to it. Now I know that the banks are better capitalized than they were then, um, but when I see that consumer foods, like the stuff that we put in our mouth for sustenance, are up 31% month over month. Think about that. 31% month over month. That's just the stuff that they're counting. And then I look at delinquency rates of multifamily housing. Those are the highest in a decade. And then when I juxtapose that with the fact that we're likely to get another interest rate cut from the Fed next week, I'm like, fucking Bizarro World, and this shit is not sustainable, man. And again, I'm just Gerardo Del Real, sitting just outside of Austin, Texas. You're in Washington State, Chris. We can only do so much. We can only affect so much. And one of the few things that I can do is try to position myself, friends, families, and readers, subscribers to at the very least make money and be as financially secure as you could possibly be by taking advantage of some of the things that are so clear to us. And this is why I love that movie so much, right? Christian Bale plays Michael Burry, who's, legendary in the space for being early on things. And so, he had this thesis that the housing market was going to collapse. And he took $1.5 billion or something, $1.3 billion, and he tied it up for 2 years. And for the first 2 years, he lost money on this thing. 1 month, he's down 5%. Then he's down 10%. Then he's down 15%. And people start freaking out. 15, 20% on $1.3 billion is a significant amount of capital. And investors started wanting their money back. And he said, well, you didn't read your fucking contracts. Like, your money's locked up as long as I want it to be locked up. You'll get it back when it works out. And he had everybody calling him every name in the book because he was early. But it was so obvious to him. And then, boom, everything went exactly the way that he thought it would go. He ends up like some 500%, which, again, you could do the math on $1.3 billion, pretty significant, and makes everyone a ton of money, and then drops the mic, walks away, and says, that wasn't worth the hassle. You motherfuckers aren't contrarians. Like, thank you, but no thank you. I won't be taking any more of your money, right? And I see on a smaller scale with us, but I see a lot of that happening right now. There's stuff that's just so obvious to you in the crypto world that it's almost like, why doesn't everybody get it? There's stuff that's so obvious to me in the commodity space. And it doesn't mean things go straight up, folks, but the overall trend, if you have the liquidity to ride things out for a couple of years, right? I just look and I go, it's the stupidest, easiest fucking trade of my life right here. All I got to do is buy, sit, and wait and just watch. And again, like you said, it doesn't mean we're going to get them all right, folks, but the ones that we get right are going to far outweigh the losses on the ones that we get wrong. And that's always the name of the game, right? Stay liquid, know what you own, mitigate risk, but know what you're risking and in the timeline that you have for that. And then just let the thesis play out. This isn't hard. So I'm excited for your presentation. I've seen it. It's phenomenal. Even I can understand it, right? I always pride myself on being a simple guy. So folks, I encourage everyone, go check that presentation out. The presentation itself is free. The publication is not. Publication, it's going to make you a lot of money if you're interested in the crypto space. And I hope you all join us for the ride. And I also hope that you go to dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe for Mr. Curls, myself, Mr. Hodges, our talented team of editors for daily articles, editorials, thoughts, opinions, and all sorts of goodies on there. Get over there. It's absolutely free. It's completely independent. It's not sponsor paid. It's that, we just take time, but we put it up there, and the information there is for y'all. So hopefully you come check us out. Any thoughts on what to expect here for the first few months of, the honeymoon period for Mr. Trump, incoming presidency, economic-wise? We know the main themes, right? Deregulation, corporate tax cuts, DOGE hopefully getting in there and putting that belt to ass, in a significant way. Anything that maybe the average person watching the markets should be watching and taking into account?
It's really tough to call at this point. Like I said earlier, I do think we might get a little renewed optimism. I don't know how much of that is getting priced in already. The markets are notoriously forward-looking. And even though, the crypto market tops out 80 weeks post-halving historically, I'm definitely going to be very aware of getting out of positions early, because crypto is cyclical and it's very volatile. So before the bear market hits, you definitely want to be rotating out. And I think that is the most valuable lesson I learned personally in the last bull market cycle, was when to get out of the markets. And, I have some good technical indicators that I use. But yeah, it's going to be a very disruptive beginning of the year, I think. It's hard to predict exactly how that disruption will play out in the markets. But I'm confident heading into the end of the year, we'll see continued bullish momentum for equities and crypto. Well, yeah.
That's why it's hard to predict, folks. Yep.
And the fourth turning talks about the fourth turning is the crisis mode of, the cyclical changes in society. And that's what we're in right now. It's when the institutions fail. And what are we witnessing right now but institutions failing left and right? Why do you have the Luigi Mangione executing a health insurance executive in broad daylight? Because these institutions are failing. Why do you have crypto? Because these institutions are failing. That's what's happening. And at some point, I am, let me just say this. I am bullish for right now. I think there's a lot of money to be made over the next several months, but I am going to be very aware of, particularly in crypto and in tech stocks, I'm going to be very conscious of selling into strength in 2025.
As the great poet Kendrick Lamar just said here in his new album, it's time to watch the party die, folks. And the very least, what we can do is hope for a restructuring that is better than the party that's dying. And the capitalist in me says there's some pretty profitable trends that can make us a lot of money in the meantime that'll help offset for our friends, for our family, for our subscribers, some of the volatility that's coming. Because there is volatility coming, folks. And that it wouldn't have mattered whether that was Mr. Biden as president, Mickey Mouse, or Mr. Trump. Volatility was coming either way. It absolutely is the stuff of port earnings, and we're going to see a whole heck of a lot more of it. So anything else you want to get off your chest, Chris? I would ask you to provide someone with a pick. We typically do this with resource stocks, but I want to throw it to you. But I don't want you to give away the farm. So don't give them the most profitable thing that's in that brain of yours, but can you give them one or two things they can look at? And before that, I got to ask you, I can't let you go without asking you. What'd you think about the Hawk girl?
Oh my. Yeah.
And that whole debacle. I mean, Nick and I had fun with it last week. You're the crypto expert. I got to ask you.
So I successfully predicted that Solana would become the preferred retail chain 2 years ago. And that was largely because it was so fast and cheap for transactions. You could trade meme coins and NFTs on it for just fractions of a penny, whereas Ethereum cost hundreds of bucks every transaction. And their user interface, their apps and their user interface were so much better. I was like, this is going to be the retail chain. I don't know why anybody would trade a meme coin on any other chain.
Right.
And lo and behold, comes 2023 and 2024, and it really becomes the meme coin casino. That's Solana all the way. So it's not surprising to see someone like the Hawk girl, Haley Welch, I believe is her name.
That's right.
Kind of jump on the bandwagon and kind of, I don't think I've ever seen anyone more maximize their 7 minutes of fame for the most profit.
That's what I said last week. She's highly intelligent. I mean, you got to give her that. Like, she did what she was supposed to do on her end of it. And I don't know if she scammed people or not. I'm not a crypto guy, so I don't know if there was anything inherently illegal about what she did. But what I do know is the girl took her platform and is making the most of it. And I don't think she's done, by the way. I think she's smart enough to come back in a way that, kind of gives her another, 15 minutes or what have you.
Yeah, it was a rug pull. I mean, in crypto, a rug pull is when you have a large number of the tokens allocated to the creators. And then they launch, they generate a bunch of liquidity. A lot of people buy in. Market cap goes up to a certain number, and then they just pull the rug out. They take all their money. And the holders are left holding the empty bag, as it were. And that's exactly what happened. It's happened countless times in crypto. Anytime you're investing in a little meme coin like that, you have to just approach it with the same mentality as you would going to the casino. You're probably going to lose all your money. You might have some fun. You might make a lot. But definitely expect to lose it all. And that's the only warning I have for meme coins.
I like it. Well, listen, do you have one that you want to recommend people do due diligence on and make their own decisions and maybe give them potential upside and the potential downside? And again, I don't want the best ones, but just the good one, right? One that, and folks, like for those of you that listen, this is going to be the value when this goes behind a paywall here in a few episodes, is you'll get actual, like we'll have conversations about the best ones, and it'll be behind a paywall because those of you that are paying absolutely deserve that, right? So for now, we're going to keep giving you some freebies. We got a few more episodes left, but if you had some capital to allocate the next, you give me the timeline and you give me what the potential upside is and what the potential downside is.
Sure. So, I mean, I'll just tell you the one that I've been really excited about for the last few months is the SUI blockchain. This was a project that was actually founded by Facebook originally, and then due to an SEC lawsuit, they basically had to let the project go. But it was still active, just not no longer under the ownership of Meta, Facebook, and it has since launched on its own. And I think it's showing a lot of the same promise that Solana did in 2021. We saw Solana go from like 30 cents to $260 in very
Mm-hmm.
short order. I don't think the upside's that huge for SUI at this point, but I did buy it at 91 cents. I sent an alert out to my readers back in the
Yep.
beginning of September.
Yep.
It's now at $4.57.
Good work. If you can get it, worth a subscription.
Not a bad investment. And I mean, I would like to see it hit base case $8, bull case $20 by the end of this cycle. It's got a lot of room left to run. It's just another layer one like Solana. I'm not going to get into the technical details,
Yeah.
but I remain bullish on it.
I like it. I like it. And look, we got, again, this is what it's going to be like the next 4 years, folks. We have Canada now announcing that they're weighing an export tax on uranium and oil if Trump adds tariffs on, some of the things that he's promised to add tariffs. So trade wars are good for no one, folks. In a perfect world, um, it's negotiation and it's a posturing and it's, setting up to do different things. And I'm all for that. But trade wars and tariffs benefit absolutely nobody. Nobody. And it really doesn't benefit the consumer that needs, electricity and fossil fuels for their vehicles and, stuff to heat your home. Like the meekest amongst us are the ones that get hit the hardest, folks. And so that's something to keep an eye on. But no, look, I'm excited for 2025. I want to thank you so much, Chris, for coming on. It was great to have you on. We're going to put a link to your presentation. I encourage everybody to go through that presentation and then go subscribe to the publication, which is, again, absolutely top notch. You can make money in crypto and natural resource stocks and cannabis stocks and biotech stocks and the overall indices, folks. It's why we have the different products that we offer through Digest Publishing, because there's more than one way to profit. And you pick, what style suits you best and what sectors suit you best. But there's definitely a lot of money to be made over the coming years. Chris, thanks again. I am Gerardo Del Real. It was my pleasure having Mr. Chris Curl on. This was the 297th episode of the weekly therapy session that we like to call Investing in Bizarro World. Get those gifts done, everybody. Wrap them, put them under the tree. Don't wait till 2 days before. They like to see the gifts under the tree. I hope everyone has a great week. Take care out there, y'all.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.